Hello and welcome to another episode of Off the Print. Tonight with me in discussion is Professor Rohan Gunaratne, who is the Director General from the Institute of National Security Studies and who is also a national security expert. In fact, today we will be discussing a very heavy and a very interesting topic, and that is what happened after the Easter Sunday attacks and what's ongoing with the investigations. Professor, thank you so much for joining me on the program today. Like I said before, it's been 2.5 years now since the Easter Sunday attacks. Where are we now where investigations are concerned? People are angry. People feel that investigations have come to a complete standstill. What's your take on it?
The Easter Sunday investigations had 3 phases. In the first phase, government arrested those who were directly involved in the Easter Sunday attack. That included Naufal, who was the mastermind, the ideologue, the theoretician of the attack. Then number 2 is Milhan, the head of the military wing. And third is they also arrested a man called Sadiq Abdul Haq, who was operating in Mavanalla area, who did the attack on the Buddha statues, 2 Hindu statues and the Mother Mary statue. We haven't publicized details of these other statues, but I can discuss that with you if you wish. So the second phase of operations was against the support network, that is those who supported the attacks. And the third phase of operations is preparing for the courts, that is reviewing the evidence, both the technical evidence and based on the debriefings what has been collected.
Okay.
So already the trial at Bar, the trials have started just last month.
Okay.
So I believe that there will be several cases.
Okay.
What happened in Mavanalla area, what happened in Kathankudi, then what happened in Vanathavillu, then of course the main attack, the main Easter attack. So all these have taken time because it was a complex attack. And terrorist investigations, counterterrorism investigations take many years. For example, the 9/11 attack, where Al-Qaeda attacked America's most iconic landmarks, the World Trade Center, the Pentagon. That investigation, the mastermind is just been tried, say 2 months ago. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the man under Osama bin Laden, he was produced in court just 2 months ago. So it took 20 years. But in this case, I want to tell you that the pace of investigation has been quite good. Not the best, but it is reasonably good, and I believe that these trials will go on at least for another year. But beyond that also there will be other arrests, other investigations, because Muslim religious extremism entered this country in 1977 with the opening of the economy. So there is a very significant infrastructure that was built. So I believe that beyond the Easter, beyond the Mavanalla, beyond the Vanathavillu, beyond what happened in the East, there will be other cases in the coming years, because national security on this subject has been neglected. So I don't think that we can expect all the cases to be completed in a year, but I think the main case, the Easter Sunday attack trials will be completed within a year.
But Professor, you said that all those connected to the Easter Sunday attacks were arrested, have been arrested, right?
Yes.
But I'll ask you a question. Now, there is a doubt that intelligence had received reports that there was an impending attack, an attack was going to take place. And now intelligence officers are being blamed for not acting or preventing these attacks. So how are we going to sort of have any hope or have any assurance that this might not occur again?
I have reviewed almost all the intelligence reports. Okay. There are 350 intelligence reports from January 2015 until April 21st, 2019.
Okay.
From state intelligence, from that is SIS, the State Intelligence Service, then from the Directorate of Military Intelligence, from the Naval Intelligence, from the Police Special Branch, and from Air Intelligence, Air Force Intelligence. So based on those reports, I can share with you Zahran, Milhan, who was the head of the military wing, Naufer, Rilwan, Zahran's brother, Zaini, the man who took over from Zahran, all these people, their names are mentioned. So before the Easter attack, this network was known, but government did not act. The government did not act decisively, and that is why I have always said that Easter Sunday attack is not a intelligence failure, it is an operational failure, failure to act. Of course,
but isn't the intelligence also blamed there? I mean, you can't just pass the buck on to the government, isn't it?
Yes. When intelligence receives information, what intelligence does it, they share the information with the enforcement agency, that is those who can go and arrest, because intelligence can't arrest. So the police, the Inspector General of Police and the specialist police divisions, CID, TID, they have the power to arrest. So that is why I say that intelligence was perfect for Easter Sunday, because the Indian police provided information through the Indian intelligence to the Sri Lankan counterpart.
How many days before the attack did this information come in by Indian intelligence?
From on the 4th of April. So the attack was 21st. There was sufficient time. But based on that intelligence, the government did not act. So there is a failure to act. So we cannot blame anyone but blame ourselves that the police did not act decisively based on the intelligence that was provided. And that itself is neglect, and that is why currently the former Inspector General of Police and other people are being prosecuted for national security neglect, which is a very serious matter.
Right. We're just going to go in for a short break. We will be right back with Professor Rohan Gunaratne. Welcome back to Off the Print. Today with me in discussion is Professor Rohan Gunaratne, who's a national security expert and who's keeping us up to date about the Easter Sunday investigations, which has caused a lot of controversy in this country ever since April 21st, 2019. Professor Gunaratne, thank you so much. You were telling me before that, intelligence received the reports from India, but they passed this on to the police, but it is the police that failed to act. And back then we were under the administration of former President Maithripala Sirisena and Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe. Do you think there was a political hand in the Easter Sunday attacks?
Zahran Hashim, the leader of the Islamic State of Sri Lanka, in a video he very clearly states why he mounted these attacks, his ideology. Then the target selection, why churches, why hotels. He explains the details in great detail in 2.5-hour video. As Director General of the Institute of National Security Studies, I have taken a step to release 11 minutes of Zahran Hashim's video. The entire video has been presented to the Government Analyst Department, and they have certified it as authentic video. It has been also presented to the Attorney General's Department, also to the Presidential Commission on Easter Sunday attack. So it is religious extremism. He says, I did this attack for Allah and for my religion. Of course, it is Zahran's ideology. It's not the ideology of the common Muslims. Muslim community doesn't believe in that level of violence.
Yes. We were under a president and a prime minister at that time, and innocent people did die. We had intelligence alerted prior to the attack. Police did not act. President at that time was not in the country. Prime Minister says that he was not aware. Shouldn't the former president and the former prime minister at least be held accountable? Is it only fair to hold the former IGP accountable for these attacks?
The president as head of state and prime minister as head of government both have a national security responsibility.
Of course.
They have all attended national security meetings.
Yes.
They all knew the threat, because I can remember in 2015 onwards, the security and intelligence community briefed both president and prime minister about 34 Sri Lankans that travelled to Syria and Iraq.
Right.
And that network is directly linked to another network in Colombo called JMI, Jamiatul Millati Ibrahim Fisilani, and that network is directly linked to the National Tawhid Jamaat, the Zahran's network in the east. So they knew the threat. They should have acted more decisively. If they had acted decisively, I mentioned 350 intelligence reports. These reports, at least they have seen some of these reports. So they are responsible for this carnage. They are responsible for this massacre.
So why aren't they being held accountable for what has happened?
And I believe that
both of them are MPs in parliament at the moment. Why are they not being held accountable?
I believe that people should review these three reports. One is the Presidential Commission into the Easter Sunday attack. Other is the Parliamentary Subcommittee into the Easter attacks. And the other is the National Security Sectorial Report. So these three reports explains this attack in great detail. Unfortunately, people have not read it. People who are commenting and speaking about it, they have not reviewed it. And I believe that they should review these reports, and I believe that this government will take action. If they are not going to take action, even another government, a future government will take action, because there was a huge loss of life. People are not going
innocent people died.
People are not going to forget about what happened on Easter. So I believe that this investigation, this inquiry, this interest in this case will continue for many years.
Professor, I'm reiterating my question to you again. Former President Maithripala Sirisena and former Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe should be held accountable for the Easter Sunday attacks.
I believe that now the police are investigating the roles and responsibilities of those who were in power during that time. And I believe that if not this government, a future government will take decisive action on this matter.
Professor, what next? We've obviously been alerted that there was an ISIS group operating in the country. Now the Taliban have taken over Afghanistan. How is that going to impact Sri Lanka here? Are we going to see another rising of Muslim radicalization here? Or probably even another rising of the ISIS group here?
The return of the Taliban Al-Qaeda alliance to Afghanistan on October 15th of 2021 has caused tremendous concern among the security and intelligence services worldwide. In fact, they are building an intelligence alliance from the Gulf until Northeast Asia, until Japan, to monitor these developments, because we are seeing that with the rise of the Islamic State in 2014 and the proclamation of a caliphate June 29, 2014 by Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, Sri Lankans travelled to Syria and Iraq, and the ideology cascaded to Sri Lanka. Similarly, we are seeing with the rise of the Taliban, various communities, various groups that are vulnerable to those ideologies are being influenced. So naturally, there should be greater orientation of the security and intelligence services to detect and prevent these attacks.
Do you think according to your years of experience in this profession, do you think such attacks can reoccur in this country?
Yes, it
How
can.
do we then prevent it?
It can if we are blinded in our eyes and in our ears. So security and intelligence is the eyes and the ears of the state. Whenever security and intelligence was harmed, then there was an attack. So history can recur again, and that is why I am always asking people in government, let the security and intelligence services do their work to protect the nation. Don't interfere with them, don't send their officers out, don't put them behind bars. Get them to work, because it is the security and intelligence services that have the main responsibility for prevention and for preemption of attacks.
Right.
The law enforcement, the police will always act after an attack. So if the security and intelligence services were intact and if they operated effectively, these attacks would not have happened. Whenever the politicians interfered and intervened in the functioning of that security and intelligence machinery, it is only then the country had to pay a very heavy price. This we must never forget.
Right.
So I am making a request. The peace we enjoy today is built on the lives of more than 20,000 military, law enforcement, intelligence officers killed. Colonel Nisam Mutalif was the commanding officer of the military intelligence corps. Another commanding officer, Colonel Midin, was also killed. So I want to share with you that we should not permit anyone to attack the military, law enforcement, intelligence services, because it is because of them that we have peace, security and stability in this country.
Professor, we're just going to go in for a short break. We will be right back. Welcome back to Off the Print. Professor, just before we went in for a short break, you were speaking to me about the assistance of the Muslim community. Right now, I can tell you, being a Muslim myself, the Muslim community have been living in a little bit of a fear since the Easter Sunday attacks took place. Somehow there is a guilt which has been created that they are held responsible for what Zahran and his team did, despite coming out in open platforms and saying, you know, that's terrorism, Muslims reject it. Somehow there is a black mark which has been created. How is the Muslim community assisting the state where investigations against terrorism and radicalization is concerned?
Muslims occupy preeminent positions in the Sri Lankan national security community. In fact, the current head of intelligence is a Muslim officer by the name of General Suresh Saleh. And if you look at our history, some of the most brilliant officers were from the Muslim community because of their linguistic and cultural competence. I should also tell you that the mentor of our special operations forces, a very close friend of mine, Colonel Fasili Lafir, he was also from the Muslim community. And certainly the Easter attack affected the Muslim community most. It is true that members of the Catholic and Christian community were killed and maimed and injured. But as a community, the Muslims were affected most. But I also want to share with you that this ideology, this extremist and violent ideology, has not spread throughout the community, right? But unfortunately, Salafi Wahhabism spread in this country in 77. After 77, when the country became an open economy, our fellow Muslims went to work in the Middle East, and also Arab preachers came here, and they preached this ideology that separated the Muslims from the Tamils and the Sinhalese. In fact, the core phrase of Zahran Hashim and other Salafi Wahhabis is Al-Wala wal-Bara, that is loyalty to Muslims and hatred to non-Muslims, love for Muslims and hatred towards Buddhists and Hindus and Christians. So this ideology is not suitable for Sri Lanka because this is a multi-ethnic, multi-religious country. Also, according to that ideology, the Salafi Wahhabi ideology, there can't be statues, images. So they want to break them. So we need to ensure that there is traditional and local Islam that flourishes to prevent future attacks. And that is why government banned 11 groups, of which many were Salafi Wahhabi groups, Ceylon Tawheed Jamaat, Sri Lanka Tawheed Jamaat, All Ceylon Tawheed Jamaat, United Tawheed Jamaat. So these groups have propagated the ideology that has resulted in the separation of Muslims and the non-Muslims. But I believe now the ACJU and DMRC and the Waqf board, they are reforming this Muslim religious space. Although it's happening very slowly, I would like to see them work more steadfastly on this matter and work very closely with the national security machinery of this country.
Right. One point I want to state here is that soon after the Easter Sunday attacks, there was a mass suicide which took place in Ampara in one of the safe houses, where almost all of Zahran's accomplices committed suicide when they were surrounded by police and intelligence officers. And I believe that that tip-off was given by the Muslim community who were residing in that area, wasn't it?
Absolutely. 5 days after Easter attack, Zahran's mother, father, his two brothers, Rilwan Zaini, his sister Hidayah, her husband, and Hadia, Zahran's wife, Zahran's two children, Nias, the eastern leader, they all gathered in Saindamarudu. And they were planning and preparing for a second wave of attacks that included the Perahera, the Asala Perahera. That included also to target the Independence Square, that the Independence Parade that they had mounted surveillance before. They had looked at a number of other targets. I do not want to mention them by name, but
and when had they planned to carry out these targets?
They were planned to carry out in this year, 2021. So, but Zahran want to very quickly do the attack, but the others want to carry long-range attacks. But I want to tell you that this attack was prevented because of the Muslim community, because the people of Saindamarudu became very suspicious when so many people, 19 people gathered in that house. We call it a safe house. There were 8 safe houses in Ampara district alone, which Zahran has built. So this particular safe house was exposed because of a tip-off of the Muslims. Muslims do not want terrorism. Muslims do not want violence. It is a wrong impression that people have that Muslims want violence. It is wrong. It is a small group of Muslims who were exposed to that ideology from the Middle East that wanted these attacks. And what is important for government and for the other communities, the Tamils and the Sinhalese, is to build the best possible relationship with the Muslims.
Is the ISIS ideology still spreading in Sri Lanka, Professor?
The Islamic,
what is your take on that?
Islamic State ideology is not spreading in Sri Lanka in the physical space. But based on our monitoring of the cyber space, I can tell you there are still people who are visiting those extremist and terrorist websites. And that is what we have to prevent, because the way to prevent terrorism and violence is to prevent exclusivism. That is, Muslims from getting isolated, right, and having their own streams, right, of school, of worship, of dress code. Some extremist Muslims here, for example, the woman who committed suicide in Mahaville Gardens, she didn't send her children to school. She didn't want her children vaccinated. Fatima Jifri. She had no non-Muslim friends. If you look at her Facebook, no non-Muslim friends. So this isolation and separation has to stop. That is why I always say, to fight this wave of religious extremism and terrorism, we need to work with the education institutions, we need to work with the religious institutions, we have to work with the information domain, the media organizations. So much more work has to be done by the Muslim leaders, Muslim elite, Muslim institutions to prevent the next attack. The responsibility for prevention largely rests in the Muslim community. That is why I said that we need to have a brilliant relationship between the Muslims and the non-Muslims. If we
Okay.
don't have such a friendship, if we allow suspicion and prejudice to grow,
Right.
and if Muslim leaders are unwilling to accept,
Right.
this is religious extremism. Zaharan says, I mounted this attack for Allah. I don't believe that. I don't believe that Zaharan's understanding of Islam is correct. See, because he's an extremist.
Correct.
So we have to prevent those ideologies from spreading and Muslims believing in that extremist ideology. But fortunately, I can tell you that most Muslims reject Zaharan.
Okay.
But we have to prevent the making of another Zaharan.
Right.
This is my message to the non-Muslims.
Right.
They have to treat Muslims as friends
Right.
and as fellow citizens, so that they will not get isolated and they will not become vulnerable to extremism and terrorism.
Right. With intelligence officers and experts like yourself working round the clock, I'm sure going forward we can have some kind of safety which is maintained in this country. So I wish you all the best with your work as well, and I thank you for joining me on this program, and I hope to have a chat with you again very soon in probably a future episode. So thank you so much, Professor Gunaratne, for joining me.
Thank you. I wish you all the best, Jamila, for the good work
Thank
that
you.
you are doing. Public education is paramount.
Yes.
If public do not understand that ideology
Yes.
was behind
Yes.
Easter, then we can't prevent the next attack. So that is why it is so important, the work that you are doing. You are reaching out to the public and sharing what really happened. Thank you.
Thank you. We will be back again next week with a brand new episode of Off the Print. Till then, good night and goodbye.